Well, I think for art, I don't like it at all. I don't think anyone should be using AI for, like official artwork and stuff. It's funny, I've actually been accused of using AI, and it's ridiculous to me. And I shot back and I said, I know you're not supposed to feed the bears, but I shot back and I said, I'm sorry, but those aren't AI. I can tell you that for sure. I'm the artist. And he just doubled down and said, oh, well, they suck anyway, or something like that. I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad I poked that bear. I did Tattoo Flash like way, way back when I was like 18. And it was like one of the first paying jobs I had before I went to college, before I knew a damn thing. And I did about 12 designs. They said, we'll give you $10 a design. And I thought, okay, that's not good, but it was my first experience doing something for somebody. And I just had to draw skulls, so that was fun. But once I went to college and graduated art school, I went to Toronto. I got a job at a design firm, a commercial art firm, and it was called Future Brand. So I got some experience working in the corporate world, presenting my ideas, working with big brands. And that was excellent. I did that for 3 years. And then I met Rue Morgue Magazine. And when I met them, I showed them my business card. I said, hey, I do artwork. I live in Toronto, blah, blah, blah. I found the magazine in Toronto. Couldn't believe it, that there was a horror magazine in Toronto. So I started working with them. And then they hired me full time. And then I did that for 15 years. I was their art director for 15 years. I was doing all those covers. And it was amazing. And then eventually, all good things have to come to pass. And I started Ghoulish Gary. I think I left the magazine in 2012. And then I just kind of hit the ground running. With Arrow, actually, my first Arrow cover was Deadly Blessings. And I was working at the magazine when I was doing some of those early Arrow videos, so I didn't have much time on the side. But I knew that I wanted to work with Arrow because I knew who Graham Humphreys was. I knew who Rick Melton was. And those guys were like the GOATs, right? Graham Humphreys, right? Amazing. So to be asked by Arrow to do artwork for them, when they're using those guys, I have to do this. So I did Deadly Blessings, and then just Arrow kept calling, right? And I've lost count how many covers I've done with you guys. And it's always an amazing experience because it's like you've given me the keys to the car, and then I show you, and then we go from there, and that's normally the way it is. I try to look at these old films like I want to have one foot in nostalgia. I want to make sure that I'm hitting the notes of like, what made this movie cool? What is it about this movie that people, grab onto? And then I try to put a new spin on that, a new concept. I always say concept is king because you have to have a concept to make it go for me. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be something interesting and unique by now. There's so many posters out there, so many Blu-ray covers out there for every movie. I'm not going to do the floating heads. I'm not going to do the explosion of characters. There's other people that can do that better. I want to do something that's more like dialed into like a concept, like the movie itself. And so I try to do that. I also pay attention to the colors of movies. What is the color of Reanimator? What is the colors of this and that? And, if Argento's lighting his movies with reds and blues, I'm going to make a poster like that. If, Romero, very earth tones, right? The 70s, like Dawn of the Dead, you're going to go earthy tones, stuff like that. Anyway, so I also use a lot of bright colors too. I love using really bold, bright colors because the 80s, it's just that influence, that neon influence that when I was a kid, these movies were just, hit my retinas. And I'm just filtering all this stuff that I grew up on. I can mention the Phantasm box set because, the one with the marble box. And that was a challenge because it had to be done very quickly and it had to be all 5 movies, I think. And so I focused on the sphere, and that became the theme to those covers because it just made it go. It just felt right. And then, okay, every movie has a different ball in it, And And I just really try to, again, with the oranges, and try to kind of like, I take cues from like the original one sheet sometimes. Once I have the sketch and once I have the basic concept, and we're all on the same page, give me a few days. I just love getting in there and finishing the artwork. It's such a thrill to me to see it from, from concept to final. And then, I sometimes I feel like I'm getting away with murder. It's like, wow, they like this idea. Like, here we go, And I love doing those Jason covers for you guys. The Friday the 13th remake release, and the Jason X, and Jason Goes to Hell. Like the feed. Actually, there was a note there that said, just, can you do something with the masks in the movie? Absolutely. And that's where those came from. Let me focus on the masks. Let me see what I can do. Putting the newspaper in between the remake one was just a cool idea to bring that together. And, I was coming up with all that stuff on my own. And that's the other thing I love doing. I come up with a lot of this verbiage on my own. The directors see it. They come back. Adam Marcus loved the interior for the Jason Goes to Hell. It's like a coroner's report, and he loved it. He got it. And the fans more or less got it too. And that's what matters to me, is that, they're picking up these little cues that I'm putting down too, right? So I'm honestly like a big kid in a candy store doing this stuff. I never imagined in my life that I would be talking to you here at Texas Frightmare Weekend. I got an email from Vintage Books. They are owned by Random House, and they have the first 5 books. And they said, we're looking for retro style covers for these. And I said, geez, well, that's kind of what I do. And it felt so good. Like, I was intimidated, by the way. It was like, those old covers, you ain't going to beat them. I'm not trying to beat those covers. I'm trying to do something new, but they look hand done. And, that was the goal, was to make them look painted. And they wanted that old school, vintage horror vibe. And, I felt like we knocked it out. And, the art director there, Mark Abrams, was amazing. And, working with him and getting these done was so much fun. It was so much fun. I grew up reading him, my mom read Stephen King books, and she would put them down and I would pick them up. And there's Pet Sematary just staring back at me, that a lot of novel covers too. They inspired me just as much as like VHS covers would, a lot of those old school book covers are incredible. So having that, under my belt has been amazing, and hopefully more to come. I did recently last year I worked on a Texas Chainsaw Massacre re-release of the video game and the movie. I had no idea the movie was going to be with it, which is awesome. And so that was exciting, because for the longest time I hadn't done any official Chainsaw stuff. And I was like, man, I know the licenses there, they're awesome. So that was great. That was sort of a white whale for me. Quentin Tarantino, I would love to do a Tarantino cover or an album or something. That would be nice, because I am a huge fan of his films as well. So I think he would be a grail, or, a bucket list. You're starting to see that conventions aren't accepting AI, right? There's a lot of comic cons that aren't accepting it. I'm telling you, if you can even find a basic graphic designer to throw you together the most minimalist thing, if you draw a stick figure, I'm gonna like that more than AI, because it's from your hand. It's a human hand drawing that thing. And that's what it is. Yeah, I'm just not with it. I don't use it. I don't use it for concepts. Some artists, and God bless them, I don't judge. They use it for their concepts, and then they draw. I don't. No, it's, I've been doing okay without it for a long time. So I'm not gonna use it. There's just no way. It's just no.